So welcome to Life's Dirty Little Secrets. I'm Emma Waddington, and we're recording from the Association of Contextual Behavioral Sciences conference in Lyon 2026. And here is our beloved Chris McCurry.
Howdy. Bonjour.
And we've decided to do this impromptu recording because it is such a wonderful environment, and we thought we'd have lots of big brains. And the question we're going to be asking a few people today is, what do you think is the conversation we should be having on Life's Dirty Little Secrets? So today we are joined first and foremost by Tom Szabo. Tom, introduce yourself.
So I'm a professor at McNeese State University, and actually leaving McNeese State University to take a clinical director position in Livingston, New Jersey at Ujala Life. And I'm doing this largely as a way of saying yes to life. Like, what has happened is my father has gotten older, and my needs to be able to be close to him, to take care of him, to have enough money to support him later on have taken me away from academia and back to my roots in clinical practice. And it is a bit of a loss and separation experience from doing what I love in academia and a welcoming in of the next phase of a life that I love living, which is caring for my father. So
Thank you.
that is me.
Yay. Well, thank you for being here with us today. So the question we're asking people is, what are the conversations you think we should be having on Life's Dirty Little Secrets or in life in general? What are we not talking enough about?
The big conversations that I've been having with my students for many years that I think is very important is ACT is a very complex model. And one of the things that's very difficult about it is having a deep intuitive sense of what these 6 different processes are. Behaviorally, we call them repertoires. And if you take the extended evolutionary meta model, then with the 2 additional dimensions, what are these 8 different things? And if they're repertoires of behavior, how do you define them? And then, okay, now that we've defined them, how do we help clinicians develop interventions that make use of metaphor, because we learn very well with metaphors that are precisely matched to the particular repertoire of behavior that at this moment in time is showing up as being a hard place for the person that you're working with. So if person has said in their conversation, I feel like I'm just a prison of light being shattered in a million different directions. If that's what somebody says to you, and they have given you some information that leads you to suspect that where they're really at this moment in time is they are holding a very tight identity that is hard for them to see more flexibly. Okay, so how do you take that metaphor that they gave you and match it directly to that particular area of the hexaflex that at this moment is really deeply problematic for that person? I think this is an important question. I think it's an important question because it's really easy to develop interventions and lose sight of the particular place on the hexaflex that you're trying to target. Okay, that's one thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess there is a skill to that. And that's probably what we also need to talk about. Like, how do you actually do it? Like, that's missing, perhaps, our ability to slow things down and be much more in the moment with the client and listening to what they're telling us. We can get overly preoccupied about perhaps where we think we should be going or where we think the client should be going. And we're missing those moment-to-moment interactions where so much is being said. That does take a lot of skill, I think.
Well, that kind of leads into the next question is, I think we need to study training. We need to study instructional design as contextual behavioral science grows, and as we adopt more practices, we need to figure out ways to train people. And we don't really know very much about training. We know that rehearsal and feedback is very important. We've seen a couple of very, very small studies that have mostly self-report from clinicians that are learning skills, saying that they like the skills that they're learning, or that they're willing to use them, or that they are using them. But we don't really know from self-report, did they really do it? Well, look, the truth of the matter is I lie, and so do you. And sometimes I don't really know what you're asking me, and so I try and answer to the best of my ability, but maybe I'm not really answering the question that you asked. And sometimes I make stuff up when I don't know the answer, and sometimes I want to look good, or I don't want to look bad, or maybe I want to look really bad so that you'll help me. So self-reports have given us limited information about what we need to do in training. We've seen a couple of very, very large studies that have been very successful, but they're unscalable. What clinic do you know that can provide 6 months of training with weekly 90-minute consultation sessions with an expert ACT trainer? You know what I mean? I think that we've seen a couple of really good studies like that, but they're not scalable. And they leave us with the question of, how do we reach clinicians who are post-terminal degree and who are new to ACT and new to FAP and want to learn how to do these things? Well, we're going to have to develop some really good training methodologies.
I love this. So I think this is a good goal. And I think often I've thought about it when I have done some teaching, is that it's really hard to know if you're being effective other than through self-report. Like, we haven't got enough data on what really does influence change, also with the client and also with our clinicians. Like, how are we actually getting to influence the kind of behaviors they're doing in the moment? It's very hard to generalize, isn't it, really? We need more data on that.
Yeah. So the studies that we need would have to be studies that evaluate clinician behavior, not self-report about behavior, and outcomes. So we need to watch clinicians working with clients and see, do clients do better with the training that we're giving them, the therapists, than they do with other training that the therapists get? Yeah, it's hard to do, but those are the studies that need to be done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on I've Stated the Secret live from Lyon.
You're
Thank you. I'm very excited to have Niklas Törneke with us. I have been following Niklas's work, and I have your book on metaphors. I love the work that you do. I think you have an incredible skill of translating incredibly complex material into digestible, easy to understand, and useful, applicable concepts.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
nice feedback.
Thank you.
very
Oh,
much.
no. Thank you. My goodness. Because some of the work that you do is incredibly complicated for those of us who don't have perhaps the fastest of minds. So, yes, very grateful.
I can't remember which conference it was, but you at the Follies, you read a poem, and I would love to have a copy of that poem.
Okay, yes, you can get that. That's not a problem. Actually, that's the one is in my book on metaphor. The last page is that poem.
Fantastic, thank you, because it's a beautiful poem.
I really love it. It's simple, but coming back to some of the questions here, or the simple, and there's a lot of depth.
So, our question is, what do you think is an important conversation for us to have either on the podcast, and perhaps you could join us for a longer one, or that you think we're not having enough on? What are the conversations we're not having as a community? Not necessarily our community of psychologists, but in the world at large.
Wow.
I know it's a big question.
Well, I think, is there a way to talk that has a special quality of supporting change? Because in therapy, it's been dominated a lot by comparing different models. And we have learned a lot from that. But it seems to me we have probably reached the limit of what we get from that. So, and I think that to go down to, are there ways to even, because people go to therapy and some people really can change their lives from that experience, but others read a poem or have some other contact with somebody and it has a tremendous impact on them. Are there some basic things there that we should learn more about? That I think is, I don't know, this is a question probably discussed, but I think that's a key question. Yeah. So.
And it's very powerful.
Well, again, just what you were saying about how it doesn't have to be psychotherapy because a lot of people don't have access to it or can't afford it or just aren't inclined to do that. But to be looking for all these other sources of inspiration and some expansiveness and to get out of your head and just take a walk in nature can be enough to sometimes get a person unstuck or feel more invigorated or inspired.
Thank you so much. So here we are joined by Rikke Kjelgaard.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Riki, I've been following you for ages and I've always loved how real, authentic, obviously that's beyond words, that you always present to, and you are, I think, one of the pillars of the organization that we're sitting amongst. And you keep reminding us about what truly is important in the work that we do, but even in the lives that we live. So today, our question to these very, very kind guests that are swapping into this table is, what do you think are some of the conversations we should be having either on our podcast that are important to be having or that we should be having within our communities, not necessarily the psychological community, but the community at large? What do you think we should be talking more about?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there are many conversations. One is a conversation about authenticity, like showing up the way you are and not the way you feel or you fear or you think others need you to be. So like, how do we become more authentic and kind as humans? And I think it's a big conversation, isn't it? But more like, how do we offer kindness to ourselves and to others? And how do we become like more authentic instead of hiding behind all these social media images? That's a conversation I would want to have. Asking each other, like, how are you? It sounds so obvious in this community, but really, how are you? And how are things going? And allowing people to be themselves. And again, not be this image or social media character. I want that.
Right. And to be able to say, how are you? And sit with what could be a long or
Whatever.
difficult answer.
Absolutely. But step into that space and allow for whatever is there to be there.
Right.
And wait for it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. That is so difficult. I was just in a workshop and I was just like having a moment. Somebody took us through a beautiful exercise. We were seeing somebody we loved and we saw them see us. It was perspective take and I was in tears. And the person behind me, and we were like invited to turn around and meet each other's eyes. And then the person behind me was just like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, I appreciate the question. But there was in it, it was like, you're crying. We need to fix it. Yeah, it's too much. And so I would want to have those conversations where we could cry or laugh or whatever, be vulnerable. And we don't need to be fixed, but somebody will sit with us in that conversation. Can I do a mic drop?
Thank you so much.
Kelly's on his way
Kelly's
back.
on-
And so the question today that we've been asking people is, since the podcast is all about conversations that we have with all these great people, what are the conversations that we should be having more of, or we're avoiding, or not just within our psychology community, but the world in general? What do we need to be talking more about?
We need to be talking more about. I suppose if I had to pick on something, I would say to qualify, like, I'm not a Luddite. I'm also not somebody who like thinks the world is coming to an end on a firestorm created by the baby boomers. I think that selling catastrophe, and even when there's like parts of it that are real, is a super lucrative business. And people you have whole business models on TikTok and Facebook and Twitter where they're essentially selling catastrophe, and especially catastrophe that involves like you've been fucked over. And maybe I can allude to like who it is that have done that to you. So I am actually persistently optimistic about the world, even in the face of, like, I know who's the president right now. And I know what a Like I can't even believe how stupid that is and how awful and venal and corrupt and terrible. And that conversation sells, and it sells extra well because it's true, right? But it's not the only thing that is true. Like there's lots of things that are true at the very same time that is true. And lots and lots of those things don't sell. Like in an attention economy, you have to sit and wait for them. And as a matter of fact, I like to have a Facebook account mostly because I need to like keep track of Chris and Sue and the different people in my life. I get to watch their children grow up and find out. It's not like they're going to call everyone they've ever met and say, "Oh, I was diagnosed with cancer," but I want to know. And so it gives me a way. And Facebook, I suppose, because of some aggregation of friends and followers that I have, is trying to help me improve the engagement of my content. Like, would you like to use AI to make your content more engaging to your audience? And I'm like, dude, I just want to talk about the trail run I went on this morning, and I have friends in different places in the world who we share these different things. It's just this drumbeat. Like Facebook turned me into a content creator. It's like right there in my profile. Really? I just thought I was talking about stuff that I like. So one thing I think that we should have more conversations about is, I'm going to quote my wife here, and she and I were talking about efficiency and all this efficiency, optimization, and better, faster, more, like how to get more friends, how to get more clicks, how to get more, and not later, now. And we were in this conversation about efficiency the other day, and she asked this question, which is a fantastic question that no one ever asks, which is efficient for what? Efficient for what? And that for what? It's not even in the conversation. I just stayed with my good friend Nani Presti down in Sicily. Every morning, Nani gets a little video texted to him by his fish guy. And the fish guy gives him this like little narrated video of, well, we've got these cuttlefish from these fishermen, and we've got this kind of shrimp from this fishing village. And he just narrates the various fishes. And then like within about 10 or 15 minutes, he needs to like send him a message like, here's what I want today, or else it's like gone. Because after that, then he sold what he's gathered to sell that day, and he wraps people's orders up, and then you toddle into the city and watch reality and you pick up your fishes. Well, this is a wildly, he orders them for himself, also for his mom. And sometimes if he has trouble, he can't get the fishes and pick them up and take them to his mom, then the fish guy, he'll take them up to his mom because his mom's been buying fish from this guy, and his dad's been buying fish from this guy and from this guy's father. This is wildly inefficient. I mean, think about just how we think about business in the modern industrialized world is more, bigger, faster, sooner, bigger is better. It's like, but for what? And I think that Nani's fish guy has developed a system here that has perfect efficiency for the preservation of relationships with the people he's in relationship with, and for these cultural and historic foodways, which are they're extinct. They're just gone because standardization was the thing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this with us.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay,
And
that was fun.
yes, and goodbye from Lyon, France.
Yes, that's right.
Au revoir.
Yes, au revoir, and we'll be back soon with some other proper episodes recorded with these guests. It's lovely and really interesting. These were some of my favorite people in the actor world, to be honest, that we just talked to.
Yes.
So see you all-
Luminaries.
Yes, luminaries. See you all very soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.